Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to have you here today. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating relationships between kings, farmers, and towns. Our journey will take us through history and show how these groups influenced each other. So, let's get started and uncover the stories behind these important roles. Let's start by examining the limitations of inscriptional evidence. While inscriptions are valuable, they often present a biased or incomplete picture of history. Moving on, we'll explore how towns and trade played a crucial role in shaping early societies. These economic activities helped foster connections and cultural exchanges. Next, we'll discuss new notions of kingship, which evolved as rulers adapted to changing social and political landscapes. Then, we'll look at the earliest states, how they emerged, and what distinguished them from smaller communities. After that, we'll go back to basics and consider the fundamental factors that contributed to state formation. We'll also see how the countryside was changing during these times, reflecting shifts in land use and population distribution. Moving forward, we'll explore the concept of an early empire, highlighting its characteristics and significance. Then, we'll touch upon key figures like Prinsep and Piyadasi, whose work helped shed light on this period. Throughout this presentation, our goal is to understand how these different elements connect to form the larger picture of early state development and societal change. In the 1830s, a major breakthrough in Indian epigraphy occurred, and I want to highlight the role of James Prinsep in this development. Prinsep was able to decipher the ancient scripts of Brahmi and Kharosthi, which are among the earliest writing systems used in India. This was a crucial step, because these scripts appear on inscriptions and coins from ancient times, and understanding them opened a window into India's early history. Most of these inscriptions mention a king referred to as Piyadasi, which translates to pleasant to behold. This phrase suggests a title of respect or admiration, possibly indicating a ruler celebrated for his qualities or deeds. Interestingly, some inscriptions also mention King Asoka, one of the most renowned ancient Indian rulers. Deciphering these texts allows us to piece together early Indian political history. By doing so, we can reconstruct the lineages of major dynasties that ruled the subcontinent. This reconstruction isn't just about names and dates. It helps us understand the broader context, how political changes influenced economic and social development over time. So, in essence, Prinsep's work was foundational. It provided the keys to unlock a significant chapter of India's history, connecting political history with the social and economic transformations that shaped the region. Starting from the 6th century onwards, the Brahmins began composing Sanskrit texts known as Dharmasutras. These texts laid down norms and rules for society, which were ideally accepted by the Kshatriyas or the warrior rulers. Rulers were instructed to collect taxes and tributes from different groups like cultivators, traders, and artisans, helping to organize and strengthen the state structure. During the same period, from the 6th to 4th century, Magadha emerged as the most powerful of the Mahajanapadas, or great kingdoms. This region was notable for its productive agriculture and rich iron mines, which supplied tools and weapons. The forests in Magadha were home to elephants, which were crucial for the army, and the Ganga tributary provided an inexpensive means of communication, facilitating trade and administration. Magadha's rise to power was largely due to the policies of ambitious and often ruthless kings. Initially, Rajabha served as the capital, a fortified settlement tucked among the hills, providing strategic defense. The 6th century was a transformative period. States and cities were developing, iron use was expanding, and coinage was beginning to take shape. It was also a time of vibrant intellectual growth, with the emergence of diverse religious systems like Buddhism and Jainism. Early Buddhist and Jain texts mention 16 major states called Mahajanapadas. These were often governed by oligarchic systems, Ganas and Sanghas, where power was shared by a group of men called Rajas. These rulers controlled resources collectively, especially land. Finally, each Mahajanapada typically had a fortified capital city, which served as the political and economic center. This period marked the foundations of complex state systems that would shape Indian history for centuries to come. The emergence of the Mauryan Empire marked a major milestone in Indian history. It was seen as both a challenge and an exciting development for Indian historians, who were eager to understand how such a vast empire could have arisen in early India. Archaeological discoveries, like stone sculptures, have played a crucial role in revealing the spectacular art typical of the Mauryan period. These artifacts help us visualize the grandeur of the empire and its cultural achievements. One of the most distinctive features of this period is the inscriptions of Emperor Ashoka. Unlike those of other rulers, Ashoka's inscriptions stand out because they suggest that he was not only powerful, but also industrious and humble. These inscriptions provide direct insights into his governance, beliefs, and efforts to communicate with his subjects across the empire. The Mauryan Empire was organized around 5 major political centers, all of which are mentioned in Ashoka's inscriptions. Administrative control was especially strong near the capital and the provincial centers, which were carefully selected for strategic reasons. Communication was vital for maintaining the empire's unity, so both land routes and river routes were essential for effective movement of people, goods, and messages. Ashoka also sought to hold his empire together through the propagation of Dhamma, or moral principles. These principles were simple, universal, and aimed at promoting the well-being of people both in this world and the next. This approach helped foster social cohesion and stability. To reconstruct the history of the Mauryan Empire, we rely on various sources. Archaeological finds like sculptures and inscriptions, especially those of Ashoka, are invaluable. We also have accounts from writers like Megasthenes and texts like the Arthashastra. Later Buddhist, Jain, and Puranic literature, as well as Sanskrit writings, mention the Mauryans. Among these, Ashoka's rock and pillar inscriptions are considered the most important, as they communicate his messages and principles directly to his subjects. In essence, Ashoka's inscriptions serve as a window into his efforts to promote Dhamma and to rule with a sense of moral responsibility. They highlight how communication through inscriptions was a key tool for governance and spreading his ideas across the vast Mauryan Empire. By the 4th century, we see the emergence of large states, including the notable Gupta Empire. Many of these states relied heavily on local rulers called Samantas. These Samantas maintained their power through local resources, especially land, and they played a crucial role by offering homage and military support to their overlords. Interestingly, if a Samanta became particularly powerful, he could even ascend to the status of king himself. When we look at the history of the Gupta rulers, much of what we know comes from poetic inscriptions called prashastis, which were written in praise of the king. While these poems are valuable, we should remember that they were often intended as works of poetry, not strict historical accounts. So, historians have to read them carefully, trying to extract factual information from poetic praise. Moving further south and into the Deccan, we find that new kingdoms, such as the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas in Tamilakam, established stable and prosperous societies. In the west, the Satavahanas ruled over parts of western and central India, while the Shakas settled in the northwestern regions. We also have evidence of the Kushanas, whose colossal statues have been discovered near Mathura. Similar statues have been found in Afghanistan, leading some historians to believe that the Kushans viewed themselves as godlike, which reflects a new kind of kingship, one that emphasized divine qualities and grandeur. This all ties into the broader theme of how notions of kingship were evolving during this time, blending political authority with divine or semi-divine status to reinforce their power and legitimacy. Let's start by talking about Prabhavati Gupta, who was the daughter of one of the most significant rulers in early Indian history, Chandragupta II. She married into the powerful Vakataka family in the Deccan. Interestingly, although Sanskrit legal texts suggested that women shouldn't have independent access to resources like land, Prabhavati did have such access and used it to grant land to others. These inscriptions also shed light on rural populations, including Brahmins, peasants, and others who were expected to contribute produce to the king or his representatives. This indicates a structured system where villagers, under the authority of their new lord, paid dues and obeyed their leaders. Moving on, early Tamil society categorized rural people into groups like large landowners called Velalar, plowmen known as Ujavar, and slaves or Adamai. These social distinctions influenced access to land, labor, and technology, shaping the overall social structure. From the early centuries of the Common Era, we see a trend of land grants, often recorded on inscriptions, mostly on copper plates given as records to land recipients. These grants primarily supported religious institutions and Brahmins, reflecting the importance of religion and elite patronage in land distribution. Another important aspect was irrigation. Communities and individuals organized the construction of wells and tanks, often recorded by kings in inscriptions. As a result, we see growing social differentiation among farmers, landless laborers, small peasants, and large landholders. The term Gehapati appears in Pali texts to describe the middle and upper classes of farmers, highlighting this social hierarchy. Large landholders and village headmen became powerful figures, often controlling other cultivators. There was also a significant shift towards plow agriculture, especially in fertile river valleys like the Ganga and Kaveri. The iron-tipped plowshare allowed farmers to turn the rich alluvial soil efficiently, boosting crop production. Transplantation of paddy in the Ganga Valley led to a dramatic increase in rice yields. However, in Punjab and Rajasthan, farmers adopted these techniques much later, often only in the 20th century, and in hill terrains like northeastern and central India, farmers relied on hoe agriculture, which suited the difficult terrain better. Finally, it's important to remember that most ordinary people's thoughts and experiences weren't recorded directly. Instead, historians rely on stories from collections like the Jatakas and Panchatantra, which started as oral tales and were later written down. Kings often imposed high taxes to fill their coffers, which was especially burdensome for peasants, highlighting the social and economic pressures faced by rural communities. All these elements together help us understand the changing countryside and social dynamics during this period. Coins were also issued by tribal republics, such as that of the Yodhayas of Punjab and Haryana. Some of the most spectacular gold coins were issued by the Gupta rulers, with the earliest issues remarkable for their purity. Some scholars suggest that when the Western Roman Empire collapsed, long-distance trade declined, and this impacted the prosperity of the states, communities, and regions that had benefited from it. Others, however, argue that new towns and trade networks began emerging around this time. They point out that although we find fewer coin finds from this period, coins are still mentioned in inscriptions and texts, indicating ongoing commercial activity. Numismatists, or coin scholars, have studied these coins to help us reconstruct possible trade networks. It's also quite likely that merchants, bankers, and townspeople themselves issued some of these coins. Interestingly, the first coins to feature the names and images of rulers were issued by the Indo-Greeks, who controlled the northwestern part of the subcontinent around the 2nd century BCE. The earliest gold coins came from the Kushanas around the 1st century CE. Trade networks didn't stick within political boundaries, so even though South India wasn't part of the Roman Empire, it still had close trade connections. From the 6th century onwards, land and river routes crisscrossed the entire subcontinent, expanding in many directions. Rulers often tried to control these routes, perhaps offering protection for a fee. Successful merchants known as Masatuvan in Tamil and Sethais or Satyavahas in Prakrit could become very wealthy. They transported a variety of goods: salt, grain, cloth, spices, textiles, and medicinal plants. Spices were especially in high demand in the Roman Empire, along with textiles and medicinal plants, which were transported across the Arabian Sea and the Mediterranean. For example, the symbol for A appears in both scripts used for writing names like Apollodotus. Names like Devanampiya, meaning beloved of the gods, and Piyadasi, meaning pleasant to behold, were quite common. Historians constantly have to evaluate inscriptions carefully, deciphering whether statements are true, plausible, or perhaps exaggerated. For instance, some inscriptions of Asoka have been interpreted as reflecting his personal anguish and shifting attitudes towards warfare. Interestingly, while many of Asoka's inscriptions have been found in present-day Orissa, the one supposedly depicting his anguish is actually missing. In the 2nd century, we find short votive inscriptions mentioning the names of donors, people from towns like washers, weavers, scribes, potters, goldsmiths, and religious teachers. Guilds or shrenis also appear, which were organizations of craft producers and merchants. They played a key role. They produced raw materials, regulated production, and helped market finished goods. It's likely that craftspersons used a variety of iron tools to meet the growing demand from urban elites. Many towns along trade routes had a vibrant mix of activity, some along rivers, others on land routes. Some served as centers of commerce, culture, and politics. The kings and ruling elites often lived in fortified cities. Archaeological finds include fine pottery with glossy finishes, probably used by the wealthy, along with ornaments, tools, and weapons. All of these elements together show us how towns and trade were central to the economic and cultural life of ancient India. Let's take a moment to understand how scripts for modern Indian languages have evolved. Most of these scripts are derived from Brahmi, which was the script used in many of the Asokan inscriptions. Brahmi is essentially the ancestor of many scripts we see today. Now, when scholars first studied these early inscriptions, they often assumed they were written in Sanskrit. However, in reality, the earliest inscriptions were actually in Prakrit, which is a more vernacular language. This distinction is quite important because it shows how our understanding of ancient scripts and languages has developed over time. Moving on, the story of deciphering Kharosthi is quite different. Kharosthi was used in inscriptions in the Northwest, and its decipherment was facilitated by a different kind of find: coins. These coins, issued by Indo-Greek kings who ruled that region, are key because they contain the names of the kings written in both Greek and Kharosthi scripts. European scholars who could read Greek took these coins and compared the Greek letters with the Kharosthi ones. This comparative approach was instrumental in cracking the code of Kharosthi, helping us understand an entirely different script and, consequently, the history of that region. So, in essence, these stories highlight how decipherment often relies on cross-referencing known languages and scripts, which is a crucial part of understanding our ancient past and connecting it to the present. There are some important technical limitations when it comes to inscriptions. For example, the letters are often very faintly engraved, which makes it challenging to be certain about what they say. Sometimes, inscriptions are damaged or missing parts of the text altogether. This adds another layer of difficulty because we can't always be sure about the exact meaning of the words used. Some inscriptions contain words or phrases that are specific to a particular place or time period, which can make interpretation even more complex. Despite discovering several thousand inscriptions, not all of them have been deciphered, published, or translated yet. This means there's still a lot we don't fully understand, and each inscription presents a unique puzzle. These limitations highlight how challenging it can be to piece together history from inscriptions alone, but they also remind us of the importance of continued research and technological advances. Overall, these factors significantly influence how we interpret and learn from these ancient texts, fitting into the larger picture of understanding our past.